we're going to take a look at 8.2, which is where we're going to take those measurements that we converted in section 1, and we're going to work on area, volume, and capacity. So we're going to be able to convert units because we still need that skill for this, but we're also going to be able to find area and volume and convert those units. So it's just like that miles per hour example, we're building off of that. So when we're looking at area, the units of length are called the linear units because they're used to measure along a line, like the rectangle. So we typically use things like inches in the English system, or we use things like meters if we're in the metric system. The units that are used to measure the rectangle will result in units squared when I find the area, because inches times inches is inches squared. So it's based off a really simple idea utilizing a square or a rectangle. So if I want to develop conversions for square units, so if I want to go from feet squared to inches squared, this is a little more complex than just going feet to inches. But you can't necessarily make a straight conversion between, if there's 12 inches in a foot, I can't say that there's 12 inches and a foot squared. So I have to convert that to inches by multiplying by the appropriate conversion factor twice. Why? Because inches times inches is inches squared. So I have to do 12 times 12. So I have to basically repeat the conversion factor. So that looks like this. If I have 1 foot squared and I want to go to inches squared, I take the conversion factor, notice that feet is in the denominator, and I just multiply it by it twice. So I get 12 times 12, which is 144. So if you notice, there's 2 conversion factors. Again, that's related to the fact that something is being squared, and when you square something, it is multiplied by itself twice. So here is a table to help you make those conversions. You don't have to memorize this or use this. You could just multiply by it twice. But if you're someone who struggles with that concept and you just want to have the straight conversion factors, I have those here for you in this slide. And something good to notice for your students is you're going to have students that say, oh, got it, multiply 2 times, done. And then you're going to have other students that would just fare better off with having the actual squared conversion factors. And as a teacher, we want to make sure we teach to suit all learners and not just some learners. And so in that way, me giving you this is me modeling a positive way to do this for your students. So let's work on converting square inches to square feet. So instead of going feet to inches, we're going to go the other way around. So if I want to convert, I have a 52-inch TV, and so that means the screen area, 52 inches by 52 inches, is 1,064. So if I want to replace inches squared with feet squared, I'm going to multiply by the conversion factor twice, so inches is in the denominator, or I'm going to use the conversion factor from up here. Either method is fine. If I was teaching this in an actual classroom, I would show both ways. That would be my suggestion. And that gives you 7.39 feet squared. Simple example done. Now, acres to square miles. Nobody really measures things in acres unless you're actually purchasing land. So students really struggle with the idea of, is my solution reasonable with acres? So this is one I would say it's great to work several examples because they won't have the frame of reference after the fact to say, yeah, that seems about right. So if I have an area of 2,219,789 acres, how large is it in square miles? I'm going to have to definitely use the conversion factors from here to be able to go from acres to miles because I don't have a frame of reference. So I can't multiply by something twice because I did not give you that conversion factor. So going back to our example, I'm going to multiply, making sure acres is in the denominator so that it works out right. And then I'm just going to do the division. So we should see that acres is actually a larger measurement than miles. You're going to have fewer miles than you have acres. Another example would be converting square yards to acres. So if I have that many square yards, I need a conversion factor that has yards in the denominator. Now you're going to notice I did not give you a conversion factor to go from yards to acres. I only gave you miles to acres and feet to acres. So that means I have to get from yards to feet or from yards to miles so that I can eventually wind up at acres. It's going to be a lot easier to go from yards to feet. So yards are in the bottom, feet is in the top, and then I need feet in the bottom, and so then acres in the top to arrive there. So I'm going to take my number times 9 divided by 43,560, and that's going to give me 452.85 acres. So that is a 2-step conversion, making sure that you're keeping that denominator rule in place. What about this one? The plans for building a deck call for 28 square meters of deck boards. You cannot go to the store and buy square meters. So John has bought 300 square feet. Does he have enough? So John went to the store. He's just kind of guesstimated, and we need to see if he has enough. So what I would do here is convert 28 square meters over to square feet. I would not convert the 300 over to square meters. So if I have 28 square meters, I need a conversion factor with meters squared in the denominator, and that's the value given there. And so then I do 28 divided by that, and I get 301.1. So poor John, he has to go back to the store. Here's another example where I'm converting area from metric to English. So this time I'm converting not just between units, I'm converting between unit systems. So in the problem, I have square kilometers, but I want to wind up with square miles so that I can make the comparison. So I'm going to say, okay, I need something with kilometers squared in the denominator to go to miles squared. I'm very blessed and lucky that I gave you that conversion factor, or that 1 square mile is 2.59 square kilometers. So I'm going to make sure I do that. I'm going to put the division through, and I get 405.4 miles squared. So is it larger or smaller? Well, in this case, Butler County is larger, which means what I was looking at did not exceed 470 square miles. Rooms typically are evaluated using square area, because that's the most common application is when you're doing something in a room. So Jane plans to have new carpet installed in her living room. She measures and she finds that the room is 300 square feet. The carpet she wants is $22 per square yard. Now, if I was her, I would just go back and I would look for something that's priced in the right units, right? That would be lovely. But we don't have that luxury in this problem. So if we look here, I want to convert square feet to square yards. I'm going to use the unit fraction $22 per yard squared to find the cost. So I'm going to do 300 feet squared. I know I want feet in the denominator, so that's how you find the fraction. And then I have to say, okay, once I have it in yards squared, I have to multiply it by $22 to figure it out. So I convert to yards by taking 300 divided by 9, and then I multiply that value by 22, and I get $733. It's kind of expensive. So just like we convert area units, I can convert units of volume. Volume units are cubed, and they measure how much capacity a three-dimensional object has. So what would it take to fill the object? That's what we're actually finding here when we talk about volume. So it's going to work just like area. I'm going to give you the unit conversion factors for each system, and then we're going to follow the examples utilizing those conversion factors. So if I'm looking here at converting cubic feet into gallons, I have a water tank. It can hold 300 cubic feet of water. How many gallons will it then hold? And if it contains salt water, how much does the water weigh? So I first have to take my conversion factor that 1 cubic foot is 7.48 gallons. When I design the fraction, I have cubic feet, so cubic feet must go in the denominator. So I take 3,000, I multiply it by 7.48. That's how I get 22,000 gallons. Now that I know that, I have to figure out, well, what does it weigh? Well, there's a conversion factor, if you go back into the lesson, that gives you converting from 1 cubic foot of seawater is 64 pounds. Now, if it's salt water, we would consider that basically to be seawater. So we're going to use that conversion factor, and we're going to be able to get to 192,000 pounds. That's a lot of weight, right? It's kind of crazy. If I want to compute the weight of water in bottles, I have to first take and find the capacity of the bottle. And in this case, they tell me the bottles are stored carrying racks that weigh 6 pounds. The rack itself weighs 6 pounds. How heavy is the rack when it's full? So I have to figure out what is the weight of one bottle and multiply that by 16. So I'm going to assume they're serving fresh water. We don't typically give people salt water to drink at a sporting event. So I'm going to take the quart and I'm going to convert it into gallons and then gallons to cubic feet, because that is going to help me get to that conversion factor that I need to be able to tell them what it weighs. And so I arrive at 2.1 pounds. Now my unit equivalences for capacity, I have some additional ones. These are some additional conversion factors that could be helpful for you to write down. So let's look at applying these. A typical pool has a volume of 82.5 cubic meters. How many millimeters of water are needed to fill the pool? First of all, we know that going from meters to millimeters is going to leave a ginormous number. So that's just something to point out to your students as you're looking at, is my answer reasonable? So I have to go first into cubic meters, then into milliliters, because I can't go straight from cubic meters to milliliters. So I'm going to go from cubic meters into centimeters, and I need meters cubed in the denominator. That's how I know how to do my conversion factor. And then I'm going to go from cubic centimeters to milliliters using the conversion factor on the previous slides. And so then I'm just going to complete the multiplication of 82.5 times that value for cubic centimeters. And that's going to arrive at that answer. If I want to convert from liters to gallons, so I have a 2-liter bottle, so I can't go straight from liters to gallons. I have to go from liters to quarts and then quarts to gallons. So since I have liters, I need liters in the denominator. And then I have quarts and I need to get to gallons, so quarts must be in the denominator. So if you notice, there's always this relationship where the unit is on the opposite part of the fraction. And that gives us 0.53 gallons. And that is the end of our lesson. So really make sure that you watch this again. Make sure you've written down all your conversion factors, because that's really going to help you in the homework.